So my buddy Rashaji Reviews recently put me on to this movie from 1999 starring Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence that I'd never heard of. How did I never hear of this film? Let's talk about it. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about life. And if you're new to the channel, my name is Anthony A. Perez, and here on this channel we talk about movies, TV, Star Wars, do a bunch of other things like vlogs, and just have a good time. So if you guys are interested in sticking around, checking out the content I have, I highly recommend hitting that subscribe button and hitting that like button and getting those fingers ready to start commenting, because we're going to start talking about life starring Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence. And I'm very happy to be joined in this video by my buddy David from his channel, Interpreting the Stars. We're going to be hearing from him in just a little bit, but for now, let's get into my thoughts on life. Like I mentioned, this movie came out in 1999, and I've never heard of it. I like to think I'm a pretty big fan of Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence, and I've seen majority of the films, at least the ones that have been out since I've been alive. And yeah, this is just one that I never heard of. And when you type it in, it's not the first movie, Life, to pop up. There are tons of movies called Life, so I think sometimes it just kind of gets lost in the shuffle. But I'm very happy I actually got to check this movie out. I did it for my buddy Rashaji Reviews channel about a month ago at this point, and wanted to do a review here on my channel as well, and have somebody else check it out, who was David from Interpreting the Stars, and this was actually his first time checking the film out too. So again, we'll be hearing from him in just a little bit. But this movie essentially centers on two black guys that are wrongly imprisoned for the murder of somebody, and yeah, it's a comedy. You know, they take some really heavy subjects, and they take this idea of these two guys that are wrongly imprisoned for a murder that they did not do, that kind of have to live this life out in prison together, and they make various friends, and essentially, it's just about two guys that were kind of wronged across their entire life, but they do a really good job of keeping it light and funny while also being able to really touch on those things that are, you know, heavier subjects to touch on. I think this movie does do a really good job of balancing the severity of the situation they're in while also keeping it light and fun and having that Eddie Murphy, Martin Lawrence feel and vibe that you expect to see in their movies. Now, one thing that's funny is that this movie takes place way back in the day in the South, and yeah, they depict white people as kind of just like the person that's talking like this and what the hell's going on. Not everybody, but a lot of them. And literally the person that finds them with the body earlier in the film literally has like his eyes going in different directions. He's all cross-eyed and he's talking like that. He's got the buck teeth. So they definitely go for the white stereotype there that maybe some people might not find too funny. But I thought it was hilarious. I really enjoy the way that this movie kind of pokes fun out of a lot of different things. And I think Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence are great in this film. So it is pretty funny, and it kind of just lets you know right out of the gate that even though this is going to touch on some serious topics like racism and prejudice overall, the movie itself is just having fun, and it's not really going for an overly serious approach to telling this story. So overall, I really thoroughly enjoyed this film. I found it to be a good time. Now, there are some slow moments, and I'll talk a little bit more about that on the back end of my review, but overall, I found this to be a good, fun time, and if you're a fan of Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence and you've never seen this movie, I highly recommend checking this movie out. This movie also has a really star-studded cast outside of Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence. You also have Bernie Mac in there, you have Anthony Anderson, and so many others, really. There's a lot of really great faces that are super recognizable that you may see pop up in here and there. So yeah, I really highly recommend checking out this movie if you haven't. And let's go ahead and hear what David from Interpreting the Stars had to say about this one.
What's up? It's Dave again from Interpreting the Stars, and I'm back on Anthony's channel as he's invited me to join him in discussing a film from 1999 that I'm honestly kind of surprised that I've never heard of before now. It's a little film called Life. Life follows around a couple of wrongly convicted men played by Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence as they live most of their days confined in prison, which helps them develop their friendship with one another while dreaming of the day that they one day can escape. First of all, thank you to Anthony for inviting me to talk about this film that I'd never heard of before. I actually think that's kind of wild given the on-screen talent in this film, consisting mostly of Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence, but Bernie Mac is also in there with a small role as well. So I've never not liked him in a film, so I was really curious to see what this was all about, and for the most part, I was very entertained by what was going on here, since it mostly felt completely original as a whole, and even more unique as an Eddie Murphy or Martin Lawrence film. It's very different than what you'd normally come to expect from them, which is pretty cool. Not only that, but they definitely have some pretty decent chemistry with one another. Comedies like this don't normally go the extra mile in focusing so hard on things like visuals. So I was definitely impressed by what was going on here in terms of production design, set design, costume design, makeup, all that. There's a lot of stuff going on here that you wouldn't normally expect that I thought worked marvelously. I mean, the film starts off in the 30s and it kind of gets interwoven with different periods of time, all of which definitely did a remarkable job convincing the audience that the setting was always consistently on point for the time period that it was supposed to take place in. The only thing that actually didn't fit into these time periods was Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence themselves, who were clearly just acting like themselves, like, you know, they came right out of the 90s. And as an audience member, I highly doubt that you'll ever buy that they belong in the 30s, especially since it begins around what should be the Great Depression, you know, where there's lots of racism, segregation, and whatnot. And the film has all these high-class, rich black men in fancy suits and everything, which, I don't know, it didn't seem likely given the time period, but, you know, whatever. The nice thing about that is that it definitely seemed to be the point. You know, it reminded me, you know, in the same year that this came out in 1999, there was another film that came out that did something pretty darn similar. Will Smith in Wild Wild West. You watch that movie, and you can definitely tell that Will Smith is just being Will Smith, and clearly does not belong in the wiki wow west. So, even though they stick out like modern day sore thumbs, it's not really the end of the world. And I mean, it's the Eddie Murphy and the Martin Lawrence that you know and love, and I wouldn't trade that for the world. However, when I review movies, one of the biggest elements that I want to see in any given film is a solid story with a story goal that our heroes are after from beginning to end, and they need to tackle, you know, a number of obstacles. Things like that, and life does not have that. It has an inciting incident, which is when they get arrested, and it begins to look like it'll be this comedic prison escape plot where they keep trying different ways to escape, but it doesn't work. But the thing about it is, after they get caught like the first time trying to escape, it's almost like they give up. And a majority of the film, at least the second act, it's like a standstill where nothing happens. And yeah, it's like, well, you know, I guess this is the life now. It's time to accept that. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if that worked for me as well. Because I kind of get what they were going for. The second act primarily focused on character development and introducing side plots that might be revisited much later on down the road. But actual plot-wise and midsection of this film, to me, is pretty pointless, and it felt like it dragged on a little bit. More than once, I kind of asked myself, you know, what is the point here? Overall, I did like the movie, and I had a good enough time with it, but I kind of doubt that I'll be revisiting it at any point soon. It's not horrible, not by a long shot, but I just expected a little bit more. Let's take a look at my final score from an unbiased technical vantage point. This film did impress me, given the fact that it is a comedy, and yet they still had a lot of great focus on things like production design, set design, costume design, makeup, and the like, which are typically not what you might expect for a film like this, and I definitely appreciated that. And I also think that there was a lot of focus on dialogue, given the fact that it is a comedy. But because the narrative seemed to be empty at least a third of the time, that largely affected this score, which turned out to be 70%. My bias score, how I felt about the film in general, I thought it was entertaining. I had a good enough time with it, but I don't care to rewatch it or to recommend it to others. I kind of fear the fact that pretty soon I'll be forgetting about it. I don't know, we'll see though. This score is 60%. When we average out the two scores together, we come to the final rating of 65%. 65 out of 100 possible stars, or a D letter grade. Thank you once again to Anthony for inviting me over to your channel to discuss this kind of somewhat forgotten Eddie Murphy film. It was definitely interesting, but I won't hog your channel much longer, man. I'll throw it back your way to finish out your thoughts on life, so take it away, man. And peace out!
As usual, a big thanks to David for being here in this video. Loved hearing your thoughts, love hearing the way you break down movies, my friend, and always a pleasure to have you here on the channel. For anybody who's interested in checking out more of David's content, you guys can find the link to his channel down below in the description box. Go give him some love, let him know I sent you. And for now, I'll just go ahead and wrap up my thoughts by saying that I agree with pretty much everything that you said. It seems like we're pretty much on the same page. One thing I also wanted to mention is about in the halfway period of the film, that is, I would say, the slowest part of the film that starts to feel a little bit aimless. We spend most of our time time with Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence and these various other prisoners that they're spending time with and kind of building a friendship with. A lot of it is a little bit rushed. It's not super developed. The main friendship that is developed is Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence. But yeah, what I really enjoy about that camaraderie during the prison scenes is it kind of reminded me of the movie Holes with Shia LaBeouf. Yeah, it definitely had like that feel and vibe of these group of people that kind of, didn't really like each other at first. There's kind of, hierarchies when they first come in there. There's different cliques, and they all kind of come together to have like a good like prisoner friendship. So I really enjoyed that element of the film, and then you have all these really familiar actors in there as well that just make it a lot of fun. But again, this film I think does a really good job of being funny, being light, while also touching on serious topics in a serious way, definitely leaning into the severity of the situation, but not, making it too much about that. First and foremost, it's definitely a comedy, and I think they do a good job of balancing it. And the other biggest thing that I want to mention about this movie is the special effects makeup done by Rick Baker. Overall, the set design, the costume design is phenomenal, but over the course of the film, our characters do age, and when I saw Rick Baker in the opening credits, I thought, wow, Rick Baker's doing the makeup for this movie? Does this movie even really need makeup? But he kills it. They look incredible, and as our characters are aging, it's incredibly believable makeup. Now, it's still Eddie Murphy and Martin Lawrence under there, kind of just doing an older person voice, so there is that comedy sketch kind of feel to it, but I really thoroughly enjoyed the way that Rick Baker made them look, and it just kind of lends itself to being a really good looking film. So overall, really enjoyed this film, both on a visual level, a performance level, a comedy level, and the fact that it's able to touch on serious topics in a really good way that definitely, touches on the severity of the situation again, but doesn't necessarily put that as the forefront of the story. It's far more about the friendship. It's far more about what's happening with these characters and the humorous part of that, while also, again, being able to lean into the severity of the situation. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up my thoughts now. A big thanks to you guys for watching. If you guys enjoyed this video, please consider hitting that like button. It really helps the channel out. Comment your thoughts, subscribe for more videos. The link to David from Interpreting the Stars is down below in the description box. Go give him some love. Let him know I sent you, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.